For a psychological test to be worth using, it must meet three fundamental standards: reliability, validity, and standardization. A test that fails any of these criteria produces data that cannot be trusted, no matter how carefully it is administered. Reliability refers to consistency. A reliable test produces the same results when administered to the same person under similar conditions. Without reliability, scores are essentially random, telling us more about measurement error than about the person being tested. Test-retest reliability is measured by giving the same test twice to the same group and correlating the two sets of scores. A strong positive correlation indicates the test is measuring something stable. IQ tests, for example, show high test-retest reliability over short periods. Inter-rater reliability matters when scoring requires human judgment. If two trained evaluators independently score the same responses and reach very different conclusions, the test lacks this form of reliability. Structured scoring rubrics help ensure consistent evaluation. Validity addresses a more fundamental question. Does the test actually measure what it claims to measure? A test can be perfectly reliable, giving identical results every time, while still being invalid if it's measuring the wrong thing entirely. Content validity requires that a test samples the full range of the concept being measured. A math achievement test that only includes multiplication problems lacks content validity. It misses subtraction, fractions, geometry, and every other mathematical domain. Criterion validity, sometimes called predictive validity, asks whether test scores predict meaningful real-world outcomes. An intelligence test has criterion validity if high scorers actually perform better academically. The test must connect to something beyond itself. Construct validity is the broadest form. It asks whether the test accurately represents the underlying theoretical construct. Does a depression scale truly capture what researchers mean by depression, or is it confounding depression with anxiety, fatigue, or social isolation? Crucially, reliability is necessary but not sufficient for validity. A scale that consistently shows you weigh 10 pounds more than you do is perfectly reliable but completely invalid. Validity requires reliability, but reliability alone guarantees nothing about what the test actually measures. Standardization means that every administration of a test follows identical procedures. The same instructions, time limits, materials, and scoring criteria must be used every time. Without standardization, scores from different administrations cannot be meaningfully compared. Norms are established by administering a standardized test to a large, representative sample of the intended population. These normative scores provide the reference point against which individual scores are interpreted. Your IQ of 115 only means something relative to the normative sample. Most psychological test scores follow a normal distribution, the familiar bell curve. The majority of scores cluster around the mean, with progressively fewer scores at the extremes. This predictable pattern allows precise interpretation of where any individual score falls. For norms to be valid, the standardization sample must accurately represent the target population. Early intelligence tests were standardized almost entirely on white, middle-class Americans, rendering their norms meaningless and potentially biased when applied to other populations. Test bias occurs when a test systematically underpredicts or overpredicts performance for particular groups. This is an empirical question, not just whether groups score differently, but whether the test is equally valid across groups, predicting outcomes with equal accuracy. Stereotype threat is a situational factor that can affect test scores. When individuals are aware of a negative stereotype about their group's ability, this awareness itself can impair their performance, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that has nothing to do with actual ability. The Flynn effect refers to the remarkable finding that average IQ scores have risen substantially across the developed world over the past century, roughly 3 points per decade. This rise is far too fast to be genetic, pointing to environmental factors like better nutrition, education, and test familiarity.